say I tried to go someplace in Rails and I get this error. What should I do? Yep, rake db create. It's telling me the database does not exist, so I better create it. Rake db create. And it might gripe at you for not running migrations either, so I'm just going to do that. I don't even have any migrations, but whatever, it's going to grump at me. So I did create, migrate, don't need to do seeds. And now that should work. And there it is. The only reason I didn't get that before was because I did this earlier this morning. Okay, so we are at this point. So the next step is going to be to get all of those assets to work. So now we're digging into the asset pipeline, and we're going to get that going the way it should be going. So let's see. So the thing about this stuff is that, I mean, again, I only want this products JavaScript to show up on this products index page. I don't want it to show up on the artist page or anything else. So I need to tell Rails, hey, stop trying to precompile this stuff and show it on every page. To do that, I am going to go to application.js first. And down here at the bottom, I see this require tree. Can anyone tell me what require tree does? It looks like a comment, but it's actually not really. Just 8-string cheese. I wish someone would say something. Oh well. All right. So if you deleted this when you were working on your app, you probably had a bad time because these are actually not just regular comments. These are actually directives that tell Rails to do something. Require tree, that tree means directory tree. Any file that's inside this JavaScript folder, if require tree is in there, then it's got to get included when Rails precompiles things. That is, when Rails pulls all the files together and smushes them together into one file. If you have require tree in here, then any file in here is going to be included in that. And we don't want that. We don't want this products.js to be included in that main page, that main JavaScript that shows up on every page. So I'm going to delete it. Oh, let me try with my cheese. All right, cool. So I'm going to delete that, and then I'll get into like how I actually do include the products in there in just a second. I'm going to do the same thing in CSS. So we're going to have a products.css, and we don't want the CSS for products to show up on every page, so I'm going to delete this. Whoops. Shit. Not what I did there. I'm going to delete this as well. So I'm deleting both require trees. That's going to be my first step. And actually, this is considered good practice to not use require tree. It's like putting things in vendor or public or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like, you guys all made apps perfectly fine not worrying about this require tree thing, but it's considered good Rails to not have that so that you explicitly have to put things in separate files unless you really do want something to be used on every single page of your app. So deleting require tree is considered a good thing and a good practice. So I'm going to start off with that. Now I am going to go into this products.js. And so this is for the products page. So for this, I do want to use Angular and ng resource. I only want them to be on the products page though. So I can sort of include them in here in the exact same way I would have included something in here. I'm going to follow the exact same format. I'm going to do // equals require Angular and // equals require Angular resource. When Rails precompiles this, it's automatically going to figure out where Angular and Angular resource are. They're in the vendor folder. It's automatically going to figure out where those are, and it's going to include them when it precompiles. So again, this is one of those like special comments where it's not really a comment. This is actually instruction to Rails telling it to include these things when it precompiles this JavaScript. And I'm going to do the same thing for products.css. That doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to make products.css. And then in here, I'm going to do the same thing with Bootstrap. This has a slightly different syntax because it's CSS, it's not JavaScript. This is going to be, let's see, what's it look like? I think it's just require Bootstrap, like that. All right, so that's the second step. So far I've told Rails, do not precompile everything when you start. And second, I've told it, okay, include Angular and ng resource only with the products.js and include Bootstrap only with the products CSS. Any questions about this so far?
Is it the equal sign that makes it different?
Yeah. Yep, so without the equal sign, it's not going to work. Good question. And this whole, like, I really don't like this special comments thing. It's, like, super hacky. Like, I think the reason they did it was because otherwise they would need to do something like require bootstrap.css or something. And that's not valid CSS. So if you wanted your CSS to validate, it's no longer going to do that. Same thing with the JavaScript. If you want your JavaScript to validate, it's no longer going to do that. So they came up with this sort of like hacky way of doing it. So even Rails isn't perfect. Even Rails uses hacks. Okay, so the third thing is that if I go into this config/initializers/assets file, I see this line right here. Precompile additional assets, application.js, application.css, and all non.js with CSS and app/assets folder are already added. So this is saying that when Rails starts, it's only going to precompile what's inside those application files. It's only going to precompile what's inside application.js and application.css. We're not doing anything with those right now. We're doing something with products.js and products.css. Rails isn't going to precompile those unless we tell it to. So that's what we need to do here. They're not inside application.js and application.css, so we need to say they should be precompiled here. They already give you an example of how to do it right here. I'm just going to uncomment that line. So this is no longer a special comment. The only place you're going to see those special comments are in JavaScript and CSS. I'm going to uncomment this, and then I'm going to put the names of my files here. Products.js and products.css. This %w thing, you may have seen this before. It's a short way of writing products.js, products.css.split space. It's a short way of writing that. They do the exact same thing. That W and %w stands for white space, I think. Maybe. Something. I don't know. That's my guess. And so the end result is products.js, products.css. This is the end result. This isn't a Rails thing. This is just a built-in Ruby thing that I also don't really like, but whatever. Max?
So before it was search.js, is the difference between search and what you want to have?
Search was just an example. It's just example text. I mean, it may have well been like, you know, wombat.js or something. They're just putting it in there so that there's something in there. And remember, it was a comment. If this is a comment, it's not going to do anything. If you want it to do something, it has to be uncommented. The only places where comments do anything are in the app/assets, JavaScript, and CSS files. Okay, so now the second to last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make these actually show up on this page. So when I refresh this, like everything that I've done, it's all very well, but it's not actually showing up yet. So now I need to actually tell Rails, hey, I want to use these things with this products index page. So I'm going to go into the view, and I immediately see one problem with this HTML. And just to emphasize what the problem is, or highlight it, I'm going to blow this up. What looks weird about this HTML? Yeah, Maureen? Yeah, I've got a body inside a body. I've got a head down here. That's pretty weird. You don't want that. You cannot have a body inside a body. You cannot have a head inside a body. There is only one head, one body on any HTML page. The reason this is happening is because my index.html.erb looks like this, And remember, everything inside here is going to get inserted into this application.html.erb. So it's exactly as if I were to copy this and paste it right here. And that's exactly what you see when you look at the CSS as it showed up in my browser. And this is bad. This is totally invalid CSS that would never validate. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here and get rid of all this stuff. And this body, well, I don't want it to be a body anymore, but I still want this class container. This is a Bootstrap thing. I still want this data ng app thing. So I'm just going to change this from being body to being a div. Works the exact same way. And then, let's see how I'm doing. So it looks exactly the same, but I can see that my HTML is already much more valid. I don't have doc type all over the place in here. So now I need to actually get the CSS and the JavaScript in here. To do that, I am going to copy the exact same format as the stuff in here. Style sheet link tag and JavaScript include tag. Those just create link and script tags for you. So I'm going to go up to the start. Got to have my equal signs or it's not going to work. Style sheet link tag products. What was the other one? JavaScript include tag. JavaScript include tag products. I don't need to write .css or .javascript. It's going to figure that out for me automatically. Now the last thing I need to do is restart my server. Whenever you change something inside config initializers, you're going to need to restart your server. That's because initializers, it's stuff that happens when you first start up the app. So if you change the initializers, you need to restart the app. If I refresh this guy, I should see some beautiful Bootstrap now. And there it is. So my Angular isn't working yet, but that's down the road. My Bootstrap is working perfectly fine. Let's see. Anything else I need to mention? Nope, I think that's it. One last thing that really has nothing to do with Angular at all is that right now this HTML won't validate, and that's because I've got link tags inside the body. Up until HTML5, that was completely not allowed. Links could only go inside the head. Now in HTML5, there's a little bit more wiggle room, but for God knows what reason, I have no idea. It's just like putting data dash in front of stuff. This is only going to validate if you put property style sheet here. You really don't need to worry about it unless you're anal retentive like I am about your HTML validating. It visually makes no difference whatsoever, but it does make your HTML validate, which is the most important thing. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop, and now I want you guys to get up to this point. Before you do, any high-level questions before you start? Okay, cool. I'm going to give you 10 minutes again this time, and we'll see if that is enough.